All right. Hey, it's your boy Dre here off the top. I'm not sure how to tell you guys this, but we got this weird note. And look, maybe I'll just read it out loud. Okay, here we go. Hey, yous guys. We regret to inform yous that Steve fell off a truck. Yeah, that's it. Fell off a truck. Don't ask any questions. In exchange, please accept this very legitimate copy of True Lies. Let's start the show.
Step into video game land. Welcome to Fine Time.
Hello, party people. It's your boy Drave. Drave?
Drave.
Wow, what the hell happened? I can't even say my name again. I'm going to keep it. It's your boy Dre and Drave and Kevin. I said your name right?
You liked the V at the end of Kev. You wanted to get in on it.
Oh my God. What? I'm embarrassed.
No, it's good. It's good. It's the Drave and Kev show.
Drave.
Yeah.
If the show were more popular, my name would be Dre forever. Nobody would ever let me stop. Our listeners probably won't. I mean, I'm going to be Drave already. What am I saying? I think enough people listen to the show where it's going to happen.
Yeah, and I think if the show goes to hell, the Drave and Kev show like slots in well on like Disney Junior channels too. So
absolutely, I would let my kids watch Drave and Kev for sure.
Yeah. Much more PG than Dre and Kevin.
This is definitely not rated PG. I'm not sure what this is rated. It is definitely rated. This podcast has explicit content. Almost said explicit lyrics. We don't have any lyrics. I would like some lyrics. Hey, listeners. Okay, you've heard our intro song. You heard it just now. You've heard it a lot throughout time now. What would you think if someone actually rapped over that? Would that be cheesy? I've been thinking about that on and off for months, like hiring somebody to actually spit some bars over that. See, Kevin's trepidatious whenever I brought this up in the past.
We could just go in a new direction and have somebody with a little banjo ditty sing over that. I don't know if we want to like taint our cool intro song with it could go like super sideways.
Well, okay, if it sucks, I'm just not going to air it. I won't use it. I'll pay him for his time and say thank you, but I'm not going to like actually play it if I think it sucks.
What if you're blind and you don't realize it sucks?
Oh, I know what sucks. Trust me.
I'm sure the audience realizes by now Andre has full editing creative control.
Can you tell?
You're gonna plug in this shitty like rap intro, and you can have no idea that it's garbage. We're gonna lose all 12 of our listeners will be gone.
If I play it for you two, and you guys don't really don't like it, then I won't. It won't matter how much I like it. I will let myself be overruled on that until I sneak it in some random like solo episode or something like that.
Okay, real quick. Infinite budget. You get one rapper to rap over it for us.
Man,
because I'm just putting it out there that it's always had like a strong Jay-Z vibe to me. So I think like Jay-Z is the shoe-in.
It's definitely I definitely on this show play like more like East Coast style, like New York, like boom bap, like 90s hip hop. So it would have to be an artist like that, right? And like I thought Nas, maybe that was like my first thought. Jay-Z would obviously slot in there.
Sounds like P. Diddy is out.
Yeah, he is now. I don't think I would choose him anyway. I like his production. I don't necessarily like him for his rapping skills, shall we say. I think I would pick Nas. If I had unlimited money, I think I would go Nas.
Or we could get Will Smith. We have infinite budget. I mean, after that slap, he's looking for work.
Of course he is. Oh, he'll have work. He doesn't need work. He has money forever.
He might do it pro bono.
just to get his name out there again on this small podcast.
He's got to start somewhere after he smacked Chris Rock around.
Did you know Nas wrote "Getting Jiggy with It" for Will Smith?
I did not.
Did you not know that? He wrote a couple songs. He wrote "Miami." He wrote a few songs for that record. It ghost written. He doesn't have his name on it, but he definitely wrote "Getting Jiggy with It" for sure. Yeah,
Miami is not that bad as far as things go. It's definitely better than Getting Jiggy with It.
You're not a fan of Getting Jiggy with It?
Nah, it feels really dated. I mean, Miami feels dated too. But
I mean, they didn't feel that way at the time, though. I mean, they definitely
I think even at the time, like you had to have known in the back of your mind that Getting Jiggy with It was not going to hold up fucking 15 years down the road.
No, I mean, of course not. I mean, it barely held up like 3 years. I think the year hit 2000 and we were like, done. Like, you know, that shit was over. But like, no, he wrote them shits. I still
What about the Wild West theme song?
I see. Yeah, that's the one I'm not a fan of. I don't like that song at all. I really don't.
It's not. I mean, in general, we're not talking about the highest caliber of music here. Let's be honest.
No, we're not. But that's always my favorite bit of like ghostwriting trivia is that Nas wrote "Getting Jiggy with It" for sure.
Okay. Keep that in my back pocket for music trivia night.
Did you know Jay-Z wrote "Still Dre"? Did you know that?
Yeah, I have heard that before. I don't know if you would have asked if I would have recalled it, but it was hiding back in the archive somewhere.
Yeah, but Jay-Z, Sean Carter, if you will, actually puts his name in credits and stuff. Like he'll write it for you, but he wants it there, you know, like whatever. But
well, he maybe wouldn't want it there if it was Will Smith. I don't know.
No, I think Will Smith isn't as you know what? That's what he needs to do. A comeback where Will Smith puts out a new record where he like fucking cusses and shit. He like calls everyone a motherfucker. He like has 3 songs dissing Chris Rock. He like goes berserk. He goes full scorched earth. He talks shit about Jada. He calls Jaden a little bitch. He like goes completely insane.
I love it. I would be there day one for it. Where does he go after that though? Then what?
Well, see, that would start his true villain arc though. You know, like you need to put out this record of like crazy shit.
Yeah.
I think.
What does he title it? I don't regret the slap.
Just call it I don't give a fuck or whatever. I don't know.
That slap was justified.
You could just call the record The Slap. Could just call it that. That's what everyone's thinking about anyway. Hey, you want to talk about video games?
All right.
I guess we should do that.
I got all sorts of stuff brewing up for a Will Smith sideshow, but we'll save it for later.
Oh, man, I think we just did it. I want to talk about this week. As you can tell, Steve is not here by that diatribe. He would never stand for this. He will be back with us next big deal. But and when he comes back next big deal, we will talk about Princess Peach Showtime, which, oh boy, we got things to say. But for now, I want to talk about Penny's Big Breakaway. Because if you remember, Kevin, when this was shown at that direct, I want to say like a year and a half ago, I was like blown away. I don't know if you remember. I was like, holy shit, this game looks incredible. This looks like it could be so special. And I was on it from the get-go. In case you don't know, Penny's Big Breakaway is a 3D platformer made by the guys who made Sonic Mania. This is her next project. And that right there was enough for me to be interested. How do you feel about Sonic Mania? I don't think we've ever.
It was awesome. Game. Yeah, I loved Sonic Mania. I think Sonic Mania is the best 2D Sonic game.
Oh yeah, that's not even close. Mm-hmm. I think it's the best Sonic game.
I thought that might have been salacious to a 2D Sonic truther, but
no. That is 100% true.
Okay.
And honestly, if not for like Mario Odyssey, that probably would have been my favorite game of 2017. Sonic Mania. I fucking love that game. Anyway, the first question someone might ask about this game is, how much is it like Sonic? Which is a very fair question, right? And the answer is, it's not like Sonic at all, except that for maybe like it draws from the same kind of like early 90s artistic sensibilities and like color choices and stuff from that era, which obviously was considered modern when Sonic came out. But it, like, Penny's Big Breakaway doesn't exactly feel like a throwback. It just feels like a consistent world that just happens to look like that. Mm-hmm. Because like the I'll give you an example, like the platforms are all like these geometric shapes, like hexagons and like these weird angles and shit, and these big triangles, which kind of sounds like the geometric shape motifs of like the late 80s, early 90s, right? But it's not using that as like a background or something. Like, it is the stage. Does that make any sense? So it has that, like, you know.
Well, and I don't want to derail you here. I said a couple episodes ago that this game, to me, I like mentally, aesthetically drew some parallels with Balan Wonderworld, and I think that's exactly why. I don't say that to be, to condemn Penny in any way, but it did. And aesthetically, I definitely related the two, and I think that the way you explain that, it kind of details why.
You're not wrong. That it absolutely does feel that way. It also has the, like in Super Mario World, like in the first world where it has like the backgrounds with like the giant like diagonal jutting up from the ground, like kind of geometric like gems kind of. Yep. You know what I mean? Penny sort of has that stuff too, like in the foreground and background. It kind of has that. So it does feel like the 90s in that way, you know? Also, the color choices are very pastel, and like I think a good comp is Rystar, with like those pinks and purples and stuff, like it just looks very Genesis-y. Mm-hmm. And it's not like trying to be super colorful. So you know how like Sonic is like, okay, the Genesis is limited in color, but when you play Sonic, it doesn't feel that way, right? Because that game is like super colorful. They're putting all these primary colors in your fucking face, right? Whereas like Rystar is like playing more off the fact that it has a limited color palette. So it's like using these particular types of hues to make like a thing. That's what Penny goes for. But yeah, I think it's really appealing, and it's a Genesis game come to life in the best way possible. It's also a buttery smooth 120 frames a second on PS5, which is always ace. I know the Switch version had some problems. I understand like that's the way most people want to play it, but like if you have a PS5, please do yourself a favor. So I called Penny's Big Breakaway a 3D platformer earlier, and while it is one, I don't want people to misunderstand what that means. This is not some bullshit collectathon like some Banjo-Kazooie or anything else with that sort of like aimless meandering around. It's, imagine something more, Kevin, like a Super Mario 3D World or Sackboy, A Big Adventure. Kirby and the Forgotten Land maybe is also a good comp, where it's like, yeah, it's a 3D platformer, but it's also like a fixed perspective. And you're going along like, I mean, it's more open than like 3D World or something like that. It's probably more akin to like the Kirby example, but it's that type of 3D platformer. Okay, you could, and it has like expansive, but not super duper expansive. It's not an exploration game by any means. You could almost say it's like Sonic Adventure without the speed. Sometimes I know that sounds like weird.
So is it still then like the intent is to get through each level from point A to B and possibly like get some optional pickups along the way, or is there more nuance to like, what you're supposed to be doing in each of these levels if it's more expansive, where it's not, there's like sub objectives to pursue throughout?
The answer is both. There is sub-objectives to pursue. There is doodads to collect as well. If you want the 3 doodads in the level, you might have to hop and jump up this certain thing or get this certain item as you go along to hit this thing. And then there's also little mini quests as you go along where it's like, hey, my friend up ahead could use this cell phone. How about get it to him without breaking it? Which means you can't like use your yo-yo. That's your main attack in this thing, your yo-yo. The yo-yo is sentient, by the way. It's really weird. It has a mouth and everything. Of course it is, right? So that means like, okay, you better get across this section without, hitting anything, which is like a little fun task you could do. Or of course, you could ignore all of this and just treat it like a total obstacle course and just go from point A to point B as fast as you can. And that's really fun too. In that respect, I would almost say it's like Donkey Kong Jungle Beat in the way that you flow together the things you can do with the yo-yo, because like you can use it to attack, as I said, but you can use it to swing on stuff. You can use it for a midair dash. You can ride on it for speed. Like if there's a hill coming up, you want to jump on your yo-yo, so you go vroom down the hill, right, instead of walking. And you'll get to know all these terrain levels and stuff naturally as you play the game. It just makes sense as you like see it ahead of you. There's not big cues like, hey, you might want to roll right here. You'll just see the layout of the level and you'll be like, oh, I feel like I should do this. And then works.
That sounds awesome, because it always feels really good when there's like kind of like a cadence or rhythm that you can get into with just like general traversal.
Yes, and that's what I feel. That's also why I would also make the comparison to Jet Set Radio or Sunset Overdrive in the way that like using these movement options and speed is largely the way you get away from enemies, because there's not too many enemies in the game, but there's also like sometimes swarms of penguins. That's kind of the main like enemy that attacks you. And if too many penguins get attached to you, then you'll die. You'll get swarmed and they'll capture you. But like you can shake them off you by doing these moves I mentioned earlier. But also for the most part, you just want to outrun them. There's no benefit to hitting them or anything like that. You just want to get away. So using all these movement options I mentioned is the way you kind of, fight in this game, if you will, the best you can. There is like boss battles and stuff, but they're not too frequent, One thing I really like about Penny's Big Breakaway is that it largely solves the unlimited lives problem that I talk about in platformers, because I really do feel that that's a key element of platforming. You have to have danger. You have to have fear of dying, or else nothing you're doing means anything. If you don't get set back, or you can just keep doing whatever, what's the point? Right? That's how I feel anyway. Penny does it great because, like I said, all the movement options you can string together, those do like combos, and you have a combo meter, again, almost like Sunset Overdrive, where you can like string together these things. And like, I'm sure every level could be played like nonstop if you wanted it to be, if you really learned how to zip through the level while doing like a full combo. I'm sure every level has that if you really want to. Obviously, I'm not going to get good enough to do something like that, but I think that's how they designed it. So if you want to play that way, you can, and it is fun to play that way. When you die, though, you lose a lot of your score. You lose 10,000 points, which in this game is a lot. So if you're playing that way and you're going for stuff and you lose that amount of points, you're like, fuck me. Like, yeah, I could start at the last checkpoint, but fuck, I may as well just start over. That's just so, like, I'm not losing that. Right. And so that's where the organic challenge comes in, where it's like, okay, do I want to just try this level again and keep my score and like go for something better, which is often what I did. Right? Because that's the way I like to play. But if you don't care about that, then you can just continue and just keep on. Who gives a shit about your score? If you don't care, then you don't care. You don't have to care, right? And the game gives you the freedom to do that. And I think that's really nice.
Do they kind of like go out of their way to make you feel bad when you lose that combo as like an incentive?
They don't make you feel super bad. They don't do some sort of like or some crazy sound when you lose like a big combo.
Glass and your score like rains down in front of you.
No, it's nothing that wild. It just naturally sort of just goes away. It's not like, is it Devil May Cry where it's like it grades you on your performance and like C is for crappy and like D is for like not dickhead, but like something else, like, like not nice. Where it's like, so you want to get a B or above so it doesn't insult you. Yeah. This, as I mentioned, this game is a fixed perspective game, but that fixed perspective doesn't always make you feel confident in your jumps, unfortunately. Now, I'm not saying it needs to be like, I don't know, some game where you can control the camera like a Mario, where you can just put it way overhead so you can really make sure of that one jump you're making. It's not that kind of game. At the same time, you're zipping through the air or sometimes onto a little platform, and you're just going to trust that you're going to land on it. Yeah, Penny does have a shadow, but you are making leaps of faith a lot in this game.
Just awkward perspective.
It can sometimes be awkward, but honestly, I guess it is a bad thing depending on who you are, but for me, I think it's fine. It just strikes the right angle of the course. And I think it does a good job for the most part of doing something dynamic versus like just being boring and it's like, oh, you can make this jump, or just having the jumps be close together. I'd rather it be the way it is than not be exciting, I guess. I'll take a little bit of jank in exchange for cool shit. So for me, it's like a really good trade-off, but I thought I'd mention it. There is a lot of jank moments, though, like getting caught on terrain or like a set piece misfiring, almost in that Sonic Adventure way. You know how where it's like you go off some like zip line or something like that and you just fall off and it's like, well, why did I fall? And then you try it again and then it works perfectly. It's like, okay, well then why, like, what happened, Sega? Right? Sometimes this game can do that. So Penny's Big Breakaway maybe takes a little too much from Sonic in a way that I don't think they probably should, you know?
Was it meant for authenticity?
Yeah. I mean, look, it's not Sonic 2006. Don't get me wrong. It's not that level of broken. At the same time, there is some stuff that just doesn't work sometimes. Here's the worst part of Penny's Big Breakaway, and the reason why I can't put it in like masterpiece status. The concept wears thin, unfortunately. There's 12 worlds in this game with like 3 or so stages each. Some have 2, some have 4. And sometimes there's a boss. And while they're not exactly like super long levels or anything, they're not that short either. And it's a lot of game, right? And it doesn't exactly always support itself. By the time you get to like World 8, you know, like you start to see like recycled elements. Oh, I remember that gimmick from stage 3. Oh, I remember this one from stage 7. Oh, they're doing the book thing again. Or, you know, like they start to recycle stuff in a way that I don't think it feels a little tacked on. They probably could have shortened this to, I think it would have been better if it were like 10 stages instead of 12.
How long did it take you to finish?
Not long. It's a pretty short game. I would say less than 8 hours.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's not a super long game or anything. It just feels like almost it could probably have been a little. It probably should have been more like Sonic Mania length, like a 4 hour, like if you wanted to do it like front to back or something like that. If Sonic Mania even takes you that long, it's probably more like 3, right? If you want to sit down and play it in one playthrough, almost that kind of length. I feel like it probably should have been, but honestly, I might be complaining about too much of a good thing, and I probably am. But you know, that's how I feel. I'm not. I will not stop talking about this game before I talk about the music, because Penny's Big Breakaway, like Sonic Mania and a lot of these other projects, is composed by T. Lopes. Oh my God, fuck. What can I even say about this guy anymore? What words are left for T. Lopes? He does it again. This is as good as anything you've heard him in recently, whether it's, what's the Turtles game, Shredder's Revenge, whether it's Sonic Mania, whether it's Sonic Superstars. He is reaching elevated status for me. Like, when it's all said and done, he might be one of the best to ever do this. I think T. Lopes' music is incredible, and it's also incredible in Penny's Big Breakaway. So if you played any of the other games that I just mentioned, just know that Penny's Big Breakaway is just as good as those. It's incredible. Other than that, yeah, I think I'm good. This is a real 3D platformer. This is like what this genre should have always been, and not the collectathon bullshit. I really appreciate Penny's Big Breakaway for that. Did it reach like the super duper great all-timer status that I thought it could be? No, of course not. But this is a really good game. It's what, $30? I can't recommend it enough. If you like this kind of thing, if this sounds remotely fun to you, definitely give it a shot.
You're coasting with Fine Time.
All right. Andre brought 1 game to the table. Kevin brought 8 this week. So if it's not a contest, but if it was, I would win. Eagle-eyed, eagle-eared listeners may have noticed that last week I brought nothing to the table, and there was a reason for that. I spent pretty much all of my free time in March building a MAME machine. And I don't have a lot necessarily to say about that process. It was kind of a pain in the dick. I don't really know a whole lot about woodworking, so I just kind of like stumbled my way through it. I think it turned out pretty well. Aesthetically, I definitely recognize if you are real concerned about an arcade machine fitting that 80s 90s aesthetic, this is probably not something you're going to appreciate because it's like bright white and it doesn't have a fake coin door in the front. It's got shelves. I think it turned out nice, but it's very much, I mean, in my mind, this is a thing that's running on a Raspberry Pi that is playing emulated games. It's certainly not a like, you know, it's not a real man's arcade machine, but I think it fits the bill for what it is for me.
I think it looks fantastic. I'll retweet after this episode. I will retweet it again. The pictures of your cabinet.
Well,
I think
you.
It looks fantastic.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's definitely. I guess what I'm saying is, if somebody looks at that, I can see why they wouldn't like it coming from a certain perspective, and that's fine.
Well, I'm old. I grew up in the arcades, and I love it. So it has my seal of approval.
You are old, so that means even more to me. But I didn't. I didn't grow up. I mean, I definitely played arcade games here and there, like at the bowling alley. You know, occasionally, but there was no local arcade where I grew up, like in the middle of Farmville, Canada. So it definitely wasn't part of my experience. So what I told these guys, both Steve and Andre, was give me some games that I definitely would not have just, played throughout my life accidentally. Give me something that I can educate myself with a little bit. And they pulled through. So I've got a list of 8 games. Steve gave me 3 and Andre gave me 5. So I'm just going to briefly kind of give some high level thoughts for these. I'll start with Steve's 3. Number 1, Pigskin 621 AD. So this is kind of a like simplified football game set in the Middle Ages. If you've got the ball, you pass your team leader and try and get in the end zone. If the other team has the ball, you try and beat the shit out of them and get the ball and then try and get to the end zone. So your team lead is a suit of armor, and then the other team members look like ruffians, I guess, until the ogres show up eventually.
So you're like a sentient suit of armor? Like you're
I think you're a person in that suit of armor. I think you can you can tell there's a person in there, but that's how you know that like that's the guy, that's the captain. Okay. It's a cool concept. You don't need to know because I don't have a fucking clue how football works in real life. But it was easy to pick this up and play. It's got really good sprites and really good animations. Like when you see the characters running with their arm out, like they just look so fucking goofy, and it like that in itself brings a lot to the experience. However, Steve fucked me. Steve was like, hey, so out of those, when you're playing Pigskin 621, ask your son if he wants to try it with you. So I did, and he had a fucking blast too. But he beat me, so it was like 67-71 or something by like 3 or 5 points, and I got beat. So this is the first time either of us had played this, but also I've been playing video games for like 35 years, and he's 10, so highly demoralizing. But I will only hold that against Steve, not against the game. It wasn't the game's fault. Multiplayer is a little bit tricky because how much like it's a fairly wide field, and there's you can like fall in the mud or like run into like these obstacles and get hurt or whatever. Your lead character in multiplayer spends quite a bit of time off screen, so you can attack with your other team members, but you can't directly control their movement. So you're kind of like mashing attack while they're like auto running towards the other team member that has the ball, while you're trying to use your controls to like direct your team leader in view of the screen. Definitely not a deal breaker, but it was a little bit finicky in multiplayer that way.
I've actually never played this game, by the way. This is something Steve is obsessed with. I've never played this Pigskin game.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, he brought this up a few weeks ago when we were asked about like, your 5 arcade games if you could only play 5 or whatever. And it was definitely just hearing him name it. It was very, very different than what I had like envisioned in my imagination when I first heard the title. So it was interesting to say the least.
All right.
The second game, Wild West Cowboys of Moo Mesa. So this is a side-scrolling run and gun that was actually based on a short-lived cartoon property that I didn't even know existed. I'm sure Steve knew plenty about this.
Me too. I watched this. It was a Saturday morning cartoon. I watched it every week.
So this must have been early 90s, right?
Early to, I wouldn't say like 93-ish, maybe 93, maybe 94 at the very latest. Maybe.
I was cartooning in 93, 94, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe I did see this and it just completely escaped my memory because I was a little boy.
Were Saturday morning cartoons a thing up there, or was it just like throughout the week? Okay, yeah,
100%. Okay. Yeah, the Fruit Loops and Ninja Turtles and Batman the Animated Series. So yeah,
okay, perfect. Yeah,
and Ninja Turtles is Ninja Turtles with cows that are cowboys. Yes. That's very much what this is. First of all, this looks so fucking good. Have you played this one before?
Yes, I played it. Our arcade had this. I watched the show and they had it. Yeah, it looked incredible. Konami was really good at this stuff, man. Yeah. When they got a property, it looks great.
Yeah, the animations are super good. The pixel art is beautiful. The bosses are like, some take up the whole screen. They're very unique, aesthetically and mechanically. It's a very bright and loud and shiny and polished game. Me and my son also played this together the whole way through. It's fairly breezy. It doesn't take a ton of time like most of these style of games would. It doesn't wear out its welcome at all. It definitely didn't feel like, quarter munchy to me. It seemed balanced enough. One slightly downside to this, there's a section where you have to like swim up the river and like button mash to get up there, and that felt like a like distinctly weak spot of this game. But certainly not a deal breaker. That's a very like brief section. To be honest, out of all 8 of these games, I think I would probably pick this one as my personal favorite. I'm surprised this isn't more well known as just specifically based as an arcade game.
Yeah, I think like the show was just sort of mildly popular, and I guess this was popular enough to this game, but it didn't hit. I mean, like, yeah, I guess out of all like the Konami games on the Turtles engine, whether it's Simpsons, whether it's Sunset Riders, whether it's whatever, I feel like Moo Mesa is kind of the pinnacle like graphics of that, if you ask me. I feel like out of all the games that run on that engine, this is like the best looking.
Yeah, I don't know. I just like why aren't people like asking? I mean, we were talking about Cadillacs and dinosaurs a few weeks ago, and you hear people saying like, "Why isn't this on Arcade Archives? Why aren't we getting this?" But like, I never hear. I haven't heard of Cowboys of Moo Mesa before. I'm surprised it isn't in higher demand from the old timers.
Yeah, I just think it's more obscure. It's almost like some of the licenses that Konami picked up, some of them live off. Like people still like those Tiny Toons games, right? That they made, but then no one talks about like the Bucky O'Hare game or like this one, right? Like so, like I guess like some of those licensed games that Konami made, just kind of get whatever.
Okay, well I'm calling for it now. I want justice for Cowboys of Moo Mesa.
Me too.
Steve's third pick. I feel bad about this one. Violence Fight. I tried this. I was having insanely crippling emulation issues. Like 10 seconds into a fight, this was dropping down to like 1 frame per second, like so incredibly unplayable. So I tried multiple times. I did not get a good go through this one, so I can't provide a noob opinion.
Well, just buy yourself a Taito Egret 2 Mini on Amazon Japan for $300, and like me and Vin did, and you can play it.
I'm fairly confident if we talk to my wife about this, she's going to say the money towards arcade related items has been spent for the year. So,
so if you wanted to spend $7.99 in Arcade Archives to buy Violence Fight right now, you're not allowed.
Cut my dick off.
Okay.
Just keeping track on my arcade spending spreadsheet of 2024.
Okay, I don't blame her honestly at this rate.
All right, on to the Andre picks. So Wonderboy 3 Monsters Lair. I think this is definitely more well known. This is a cartoony auto-scrolling platformer that's got like always shoot 'em up boss fights. Great level and enemy design. It's how do I put this? It's like very varied throughout the game, but it's got this like consistent fever dream type thing going on throughout. Does that make sense?
I would say so, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. It's varied throughout, but it's got a cohesive like design language throughout. And I specifically noticed, I'm sure that this almost at least partially made Andre's list due to music, because I would say out of all 5 of his picks, the music was like really bumping here.
Do you know me or do you know me? I mean, like, Jesus Christ. I'm not even going to talk about the TurboGrafx CD version. Like, don't even get me started on that music. That shit, we'll be here all day. But yeah, the original arcade version, choice stuff.
It was good. I cranked up the volume to max when I was playing this, because it was definitely a good part of the experience. Yep. I will say, I thought on this one, the bosses are maybe a little bit cheap sometimes. The like platforming portions of the levels was not overly difficult. And I'm playing this on emulation, so it's fine because I can just keep telling it to feed in quarters. But if I was playing this in the arcade, I would have burned through quite a few quarters. Especially, there was one, it was like maybe the second or third world. There was like the big snake that comes in there, and you've got to like hit each of its individual like snake sections of its body. Mm-hmm. I felt like I got fucked repeatedly on that one. It was very tricky. So good game, but yeah, I'm glad I wasn't spending quarters playing that, because I'm also just like bad at some of these games, admittedly, too. So
I was pretty young when this came out, so obviously I wasn't good at it either. I didn't have the dexterity to really get past more than one of the shmup bosses, if I was lucky on like a quarter or two. So I was young, but when this came out, the TurboGrafx CD version came out on Wii Virtual Console back in the day, and then that's when I reevaluated it, and I was just buying it based because I was buying every TurboGrafx game, and then I bought that. I was like, oh shit, this game, I used to play this game at the arcade, and then I fell in love with it again. Yeah, so
yeah, it's cool. It gets tricky with the bosses for sure. Mm-hmm. Second one, RayForce. Now, I was wondering, there's a couple here. I was wondering if Andre was trying, maybe not this one, but I couldn't find this initially on my cabinet, and I had to do some legwork. It turns out, so I do have the Saturn port titled Galactic Attack on there. So yes. I played that. This is a vertical.
It's I'm sorry, I just want to say, because it's really funny. So yeah, the arcade version is called RayForce. On Saturn here, it's called Galactic Attack. On Saturn in Japan, it's called Lair Section. Oh. So it has 3 different fucking names, and it's really confusing because this is also on Switch as one of like the S Tribute games or whatever, like the Saturn emulator games, and it says Galactic Attack / Lair Section because they don't know what the fuck to do with it either. So it is confusing.
I'll get there. I looked into that too. It was 40 Canadian dollars. So
yeah, it's a lot.
Maybe I'll give away the farm early here. Unfortunately, I kept having emulation issues with this one too. But I could play it fine for like 4 or 5 minutes, and then I kept getting crashes. Which it was a shame because I was really enjoying this, and I'm not the shmup guy for sure, as we all know.
That's why I suggested it to you, because I thought you would like this game. So was I right?
Yeah. I went. I was like, okay, if this is on Arcade Archives and I'm going to spend, a few bucks, I'll definitely get this on Switch and then give it its due so I can at least talk about it proficiently. But yeah, so it's, I guess, to back up a little bit, this is a vertical shooter where you play on 2 different planes. So one is on your height of your ship, and you got your like rapid fire weapon there. And then the plane below where you like line up lasers to drop the lasers. So, and I was specifically impressed that it's got this multi-plane thing, and it's not overt, like, okay, this is the plane you're on and these are the lower planes, to the point where it's like pushy and like, they're not highlighting everything on the lower plane in red and everything on your plane in blue. But it's also very intuitive to what you're supposed to be attacking on each plane. And I feel like that was really important with this game, because if I was trying to shoot stuff on the lower plane or shoot the lasers to stuff on the plane that I'm flying on, that would really fuck you up very quickly on this. Mm-hmm. So it's the design of it is done very well, where everything looks cohesive, but it's still very playable. And it doesn't trip you up, and it doesn't get in the way having that multiplane gameplay. And yeah, I think especially early on for the first 5 minutes I was able to play, the gameplay is fairly forgiving. I'm also assuming that's maybe why Andre thought that this would be appropriate for me. This is definitely easier than some of the other shmups that I've tried. So
yeah, it's easy to get into. It does get hard later on. Don't get me wrong, but it definitely is easy to start. And you know what you said about readability of what's above, what's on your plane, and what's not, and what's below you that you can shoot with lasers. I never really thought about it that way, but it's true. The game doesn't really yell that at you. You just kind of know, and it's very intuitive. If you want to play more of this game, this is the first part of a trilogy. There's RayForce, Ray Storm, and Ray Crisis, and they're collected on Switch as Ray's Arcade Chronology.
Well, I seen that too, but that was also right around 40 Canadian dollars.
Yeah, it's a lot. So it's a lot. I imported it. I imported off the Switch eShop in Japan, so I paid a lot. Okay. So before
I don't mean to sound like the fucking cheap bastard. I also, when I was looking into this and what my options were, this is also on Title Legends 2. So my thought was maybe someday I do some archiving on PS2 emulation. Give this a better
That's so
shot.
weird. Emulate the PS2 to emulate like Ray from like you're doing. It's such a strange thing.
I know.
See, that's how I felt. Upcoming in later this summer, we're gonna have a big bonanza of Namco Museum, and that's how I kind of felt doing the PS1 stuff. I'm like, I'm playing on my Steam Deck, playing PS1 games that are emulating Pac-Man or whatever. Like it felt so weird. Yeah, but hey, I guess it works.
We're getting into emulationception for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
I think part 2 of Andre trying to see if I could do some legwork. He told me to play Baraduke, and again, I couldn't find this one. And though, like, I've got 2 SD card images burned for the Pi, and one of them has almost 7,000 games, so I was confident the stuff would be on there. I had to do some Googling, and this one was also released as Alien Sector in some regions. So when I found that out, then I tracked it down.
Oh, so you found it as Alien Sector. I've only known it as Baraduke. Baraduke? I don't know. I always said Baraduke. I've only known it as that because it's Baraduke on Namco Museum Volume 5, and it's also on Arcade Archives as Baraduke. I've never known the name Alien Sector, so I wasn't trying to trick you.
No, I don't know what regions that was or wasn't in, but it's definitely the same game. So you play as this little space woman Kissy and clear out levels of uniquely designed aliens and move down floors, and then each world will culminate in a boss fight. So this was definitely fun. The gameplay just feels addictive here. But sadly, you cannot keep pumping lives and keep on from where you lost your lives here. This is a little too old for that. So even when you put in a new quarter, if you lost your lives, you got to start over at the start each time. So even with the quarter button, you got to get good if you want to get anywhere.
Yeah.
It's tricky.
Yeah. It's tricky. Did me and Vin like the little alien that says, "I'm your friend," and that very scratchy voice when you start each level? Hey, don't shoot me, fucker. You need to collect me.
Yeah, he was cute.
Yeah. You want some Namco deep lore for you? I'll tell you some deep lore. Kissy is Mr. Driller's mom.
Really?
Yes. Because as you know, Dig Dug, aka Taizo Hori, that's Mr. Driller's dad. So the Kissy is so they had a baby, and they had Susumu Hori, Mr. Driller.
Oh man, there must be some fucking wild porn out there that somebody's made of this,
dude. Dig Dug porn, of course. Come on, please, that has to exist.
I'm not googling that for the record.
But yeah, Kissy is Mr. Driller's mom. Now you know. Okay, you know the Namco
now I know. Good. When that comes up in general conversation when I'm at work someday, I'll be able to shock and awe.
If that ever came up at a workplace outside of like an actual like video game development place, I'd be like, "What the fuck are you even, Baraduke?"
I'll make sure to keep that tidbit in my back pocket for when I'm at a wedding someday and I need to impress my peers.
Oh boy. But yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I do like that game a lot. It's good.
Yeah, it was fun. I was surprised, and I wonder if you have any specific thoughts on this. I know we're getting back to mid '80s here, but I think some background music would have added to this. I don't know if that was purposeful, just to give it that real solitary feel, but it's just sound effects. There's no like ongoing music as you play through this.
It was purposeful. I mean, obviously by 85 or 6 or whenever this came out, the BGM was a regular thing. So, I mean, and Namco was like the pioneer of that. I think they had one of the first BGMs ever in New Rally X. That was 1981. So obviously but there doesn't seem to be a whole like cadence of like sound effects. Like Pac-Man doesn't have music, but it has the whole cadence of constant sound effects to have like a thing. Bar-a-Duke doesn't really have that. So
yeah, it was noticeable for sure.
Yeah.
Magic Sword. So this is a fantasy setting hack and slash and some very light platforming. Again, really cohesive vibe with this. Really good music, and I really liked. So you swap out your assist characters throughout this, and it was fun, like finding them and just kind of experimenting with them and seeing the different character designs. And so I was reading about this on Wikipedia. I found out that Splatoon might have some copyright issues because there's that one real big guy that comes around with you, and his name is Big Man.
His name is Big Man.
So his name is Big Man. He did it first.
You know what? I often chose him because like if I got him out of the door, because like if I felt like if I had like the white mage or something, they would die in like 2 hits or something like that. They would just like get destroyed or something. He had some actual HP, so I just tried to you could take some punishment. Big Man could take some punishment.
Well, I always wanted to let all of the characters out of the locked doors because of the excellent translation where the characters would ask me things such as, "Get me escape," and "Get rid of me."
I also like "Take me out." Take me out was fun. But yeah, get me escape was pretty good.
Well, I was because I seen get rid of me very early on before I like realized exactly what's going on with letting these guys out of the doors with the keys. And I was like, what the fuck's going on? But like, I thought it was literally like he wanted me to get rid of him. And then I eventually, after get me escape, I clued into what's going on here.
You know, honestly, as a kid, and I don't know if I ever mentioned this, there was so much bad English in arcade games back then that I just kind of thought that was like the language of arcade, because that's the only time I saw people speak that way. So I just thought I didn't understand that these were badly translated from Japanese. I didn't get that.
It was just like a thing to.
Yeah, this is just how video games talk. Get me escape or whatever. Like, yeah.
Like there was some programming like issue where they couldn't put "let me escape" in there.
Yeah, I don't know what I thought. I just thought that's like how you talked in a game, because again, that's the only place I saw this stuff. So like my kid brain just thought, oh, I guess that's just what you say. I guess it doesn't make any sense, but whatever. But
I love that.
Oh man. Violence Fight. It's too bad you didn't get to play Violence Fight, because that has some of the best bad English of all time. It is incredible. So if you ever do get to play that, tell me.
I'll try and find a way one of these days and follow up on that one. Magic Sword was fun. I did think it gets repetitive. They keep you posted on how many levels you had left, and I got to about 30 out of 51, and I thought, okay, I think because probably after the first 10, you know, and it's still fun and engaging, but there's not much introducing new elements after a certain point.
Yeah. No, that's true. It is 50 floors. They are not lying. You will go through 50 levels. And they're not like super long levels, but man, you want to talk about like early Capcom shit that really, as a kid, just really, oh man, Magic Sword for me was it. Now that, to me, that is like quintessential like essence of Capcom right there. Yeah, you know,
that makes sense.
It's great.
And lastly, but not least, Demon's World. I feel like I can almost only talk about the aesthetic because it's so striking on this one. This is the most 90s aesthetic I've ever seen. I looked it up. This is released in 89, but I will hear none of that. This is 100% a 90s game. It has a 90s. Very 90s. Yeah, it has a 90s vibe. Music. And it's great. Like it's just it's so good. So yeah, I mean, it's if you Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that, like, yeah, the Cars released their first two albums in the late 70s, but that's the 80s. Come on,
Right?
KDO may have released in 79, but that's the fucking 80s. Like, let's be real, right?
If you haven't seen this, it is very worth just going and like Googling and looking at a few screenshots because it's interesting how 90s it is.
Yes.
So this is a auto scrolling run and gun with all sort of demonic monsters to fight. While you wear your very cool 90s sunglasses, and I loved how the sunglasses would only come off your face if you take damage. You kind of get that little like quick animation where they like lift up off your face when you get hurt. This is a very fun game too. I found this one to be tricky. And not because of the level design or enemy placement or any enemy health or anything. But it's got this jumping mechanic where you have a double jump, and I never figured out. So the second jump, do you have a jetpack or what's because you definitely have something that's like pushing you when you do your second jump, right?
Yeah, I don't think you have an apparatus. I think you can just double jump like Super Ghouls and Ghosts. I think you can jump twice. You know what I mean? But you have to do it. You have to do it on your ascent. You can't do it at the apex of your jump or anything. You have to like do it as you're going up. That's the tricky part.
And that second jump really changes like your inertia and the trajectory of your jump. And this is really interesting. So when I say this is tricky, this is not bad difficulty. And definitely while I was playing this, I was adapting to it, but I certainly was not like mastering this movement. You really would have to get the hang of this, I think. But the more you get the hang of it, it's very satisfying. It's just got a very, it's not that it's not intuitive. I've just really I struggle to think of anything to equate to like how that movement is. And it got frustratingly hard eventually. I played this for maybe 25-30 minutes. And then eventually I was getting to a point where I was like over and over, like burning through lives, just trying to get through the same section over and over. So it got quite hard, I thought. But yeah, it was very, very fun. And I think this would be a great game if you wanted like a game like this to really sink your teeth into. This would be a very fun one to like get really good at.
I think so as well. Yeah, this game is fantastic. I think I talked about it a little bit last year when I was talking about one of those Toa Plan duology of shmups. I think it was Zero Fire, the one that has Zero Wing and Hellfire. And they always include a non-shmup thing as DLC. And that time they included Demon's World, or in Japan it's known as Horror Story. Here we got it as Demon's World. And I was really enjoying it because on there they have the arcade and the Turbo CD version. And I think maybe if you should try the Turbo CD version, because obviously home ports of arcade games, they go easier on you, so you can really, you know what I mean? They're not trying to take your money anymore. You already gave them your money. Right. So, I honestly have never tried Turbo emulation in my entire life, but if you can emulate TurboGrafx CD, definitely, or PC Engine CD in this case, definitely try Horror Story, the Japanese version, the home version. I think you would, if you want some further playing of that game, I think you would enjoy that.
Okay, I will try that. I've got that set up on my the Retroid Pocket, so I'll archive the home version of this.
All right, yeah.
That was a lot of fun. You guys gave me some really, really solid and like diverse recommendations, which was fun, and it was a good way to break in that main machine. So I'm slightly more educated than I was.
I'm glad you had fun with my picks. I wasn't sure, I just thought I picked some stuff that I thought you would like, that I also enjoyed at the time. But yeah, I think I really do. Once it becomes cheap sometime, I definitely suggest that Ray's Arcade Chronology. I think you would have fun with all three of those games.
Yeah. I would like to get into a shmup like that, but it's intimidating. Like a lot of those games are fucking hard, and I just don't have the it's not even just a time thing. I don't have the when I was a kid, if something was hard, I could just sit there for fucking hours and dick around with it, and I don't have the attention span for that anymore. I like those games are fun and satisfying, but if it's too hard and I'm not getting it soon, then I just don't have the oomph to stick with it. So this seemed like a good introductory for me.
I understand that. That's why I would never suggest you play something like, I've really liked these R-Type Final games recently, and I absolutely would never suggest you play those, right? Those are for sickos like me and Steve and Ven or whatever. I would never suggest you play that. All right. Well, we want to talk Stellar Blade, but first, Kevin, I know Steve isn't here, and I know he has a certain feeling about showers with only 2 people, but I think we're going to do it anyway.
Without him? Ooh.
Yeah.
How is that going to make him feel?
We're about to find out.
It's time to hit the showers. We'll be right back on Fine Time.
All right, we're back. You know, Kevin, I don't mind sharing the loofah with you. I mean, I know Steve does. I don't mind sharing the loofah. Do we have to share the towel? I mean,
Steve, he's lying. He's being provocative. And I when we were on break, I put my foot down. And I said, we cannot do this without Steve. He's saying this for shock value.
No, we showered together and we were naked and it was glorious, Steve. It was glorious. Glorious.
What's he gonna think of us?
Whatever he wants, I guess.
Well, maybe he'll be driven to be extra enthusiastic for shower break next big deal.
I mean, maybe, yeah. He's usually like, I guess. All right, can I bring my own loofah?
Like,
No, you
I
cannot.
got something to make up for now. I don't want Kevin and Andre getting too cozy.
All right. Well, speaking of us being provocative, we need to talk about Stellar Blade, or at least the demo of Stellar Blade, because going back to our previous creative endeavor, I've been hot on Stellar Blade since it was shown off as Project Eve, I think it was called, at the PlayStation 5 reveal. What was that, summer 2020? We're all still locked indoors, nothing to do. We were watching that thing.
I could not give you a specific year. It was ages ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. So when they announced this demo, I was like, okay, here we go. This thing I've been looking forward to for years is finally here. Just to set this for the people, what was always your feelings about Stellar Blade leading up to this?
Yeah, I was not hot on it. I didn't find anything off-putting about it. It's just definitely not something that struck me as a Kevin game. And it is also worth noting, I have a wife and kids in the area where my PlayStation 5 is set up, and there is an extreme level of jiggle physics in this game that is not appropriate for that setting, I guess. So even this demo, I honestly had to find time to play it in the last few days when there was solitude.
Yeah. Okay. I understand. So I can't be buying you Sinran Kagura on PlayStation or something like that. You can't just be playing.
No panty waifu games going on here.
All right. Well, okay, so before we start talking about the game, I found this really funny in the options. Under gameplay, there was ponytail length, like short or long ponytail. Why was something like that under gameplay? That was weird. It's just like, okay.
I mean, we didn't get a taste of everything, I'm sure. Maybe that, maybe that does have a tangible effect on the game at some point for some reason.
The performance, maybe. Oh, there's too much hair. It's like knocking it down by a few frames. Like, what do you
they cut off 4 inches of hair just to get a couple extra FPS out of it?
Yeah. Too much. Yeah, man, you can't apply those physics to everything.
So the hair is what gets cut?
Yeah, just the hair. This turned out to be more interesting than we thought it would, I think, because this was not as straightforward a demo and a gameplay experience as I thought it might be. And it turned out to be much more complex than I thought. But let's start with the good. And I think we can both agree on this. Graphics on PlayStation 5, baby. We're in full effect. That opening set piece was crazy impressive. It ran perfectly. Yeah, they cut some corners. I saw where they faded out a few things in front of your face. Okay, fine. But that thing ran insane. What did you think of that opening set?
Yeah, I mean, even just the whole demo throughout, it really was one of the best graphical showcases I've seen on the system. And it's like I think the presentation overall helps because there's a very like strong art direction with this. The settings are very well done. It's like the tech and the art direction really come together to make it something special in that respect.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It just has an excellent vibe in general. And this goes into like the world and art as well as the graphics bringing it to life. Is that like I am a sucker for anime post-apocalyptic shit. You know that. That'll get me every time. So, and Stellar Blade is that. And this game does it really well with the ruined city, and you have overgrown vegetation. You have those like little streams of water splashing down all over the place, which you can actually run under, and they have like real water physics and everything, not just like a little plane. I mean, like that's fine too if it's just something to look at, but the fact that you could like interact with those things is really cool. I don't know if you try to do that, like stand under one or whatever, and the force feedback on the controller, the dual sense really gives you that like water spot. It's great. I love that immersive type of shit. I think that stuff really matters. It's not just impressive. I think it's immersive. I think it really draws you into that world. The music is great too. It's really lush and atmospheric. Maybe, I don't know if you agree with this. It felt very like 2000s. It felt very like mid to, it had that like sort of like before we started using the term like chill downbeat or EDM or whatever, like it has that electronic vibe from the 2000s, and I not like 90s techno, right? Specifically like something from 2006 or something. Like if I found some obscure like PS2 game that I never heard of, I would expect it to have music like this.
Yeah, different, but I think you could probably draw some parallels between like this and the music in Metroid Prime.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's what I was thinking of, honestly, because I don't know if you remember last year when we were talking about Metroid Prime Remastered, that's the one thing I wasn't prepared for when we were playing that game, is that the music is so 2002, very of its time in a good way, I think. And Stellar Blade it's not trying to be retro or something, obviously, but it just has that vibe and it's appropriate for the world and whatever. So that's the good part.
Yeah, well, and before we move on from the good, just when you're talking about, polish and kind of what they were able to do there, I wasn't expecting this necessarily to be superficial, but I was surprised at how robust everything kind of seems to be. The upgrade system, just kind of like going through those menus, seems pretty robust and well thought out. They've got the crafting system, they've got like the swimming and diving felt really good. It just seems like there's a kind of a level of refinement that I wasn't expecting. And especially, so I had one specific moment that really caught me off guard. There's a section fairly early on when you're traveling across the like broken bridge and you've got to like hop across the gap in the sections. And then you can like kind of go off to the side and there's a like chest with items in there or whatever. And I fell down in that area. And first of all, I wasn't expecting to be able to fall, period. I kind of just expected there to be invisible walls around those areas other than like where you're jumping from to stop that. So not only, and I was just like kind of taken aback when I fell down in a good way. And then when I fell on this like little outcropping of rock that's kind of like beside the pit under the bridge. And I was able to like jump out of there, and looking at this area that I fell into, it very much looks like something that in it really like any video game, I wouldn't expect it to be accessible or traversable. Specifically on that moment, I got a lot of respect out of what they've done with this game overall, because it kind of just like speaks volumes about how much like effort is put in here. This game really isn't to just like A to B, like look at the jiggly butt game. Like there's definitely a lot of effort and love, I think, that was put into building this. So I got a lot of respect out of that for this.
Yeah. And I don't want to really give too much voice to the people being so fucking weird about this game online. But like, yeah, there's people who are like taking this as like, oh man, this game is anti-woke because there's a girl's butt or something like that, like, and all that bullshit. And it's like, this isn't even that titillating. Like, I mean, yeah, she's like scantily clad and wearing a skin tight suit, but if you want that, I think you're better served playing fucking Bayonetta or something if you really want some like that kind of show. I mean, look, maybe that happens later on in this game, but for now, she's just a girl wearing what she's wearing, right? Like, so I don't know. People are being so weird about it.
Yeah, come out and claim this as like an anti-woke thing. I mean, to me, like looking at screenshots of this, like to me, it like looks like a modern version of Piano 3, right? This is not like something new.
Yeah, I don't know, but you know how those people are. Again, I don't want to give too much voice to that stupid shit, but I thought it would be remiss of me if I didn't at least say that. It's like, y'all, if you want that in your games, you can easily have that. Anyway, I think we agree so far, and we might agree on this too, but here's the big problem. Said all the good stuff. Here's the bad. I do not know if I like this combat. It feels confused, and I'm confused by it. So I don't even know where to begin. So like it's asking for this like very picky parry timing and dodging. You know, almost like a Souls game, right? Which is something neither of us are into on this show, right? But then, on top of that, it also wants you to scramble for your life against, like, enemy swarms, all sorts of little guys that they want you to chop up. But then they want you to dodge those too, but that goes against, like, the stick and move philosophy of, like, a Souls type of game. So, and it certainly isn't trying to be like Devil May Cry because there's no guns or you don't have any like wildly agile movement or anything like that. And that also obviously brings it to Bayonetta. It's not trying to be that either because you don't have like the freestyle combos and like combat solutions to certain types of situations. It seems like she can just do the thing. Now, again, maybe other stuff is unlockable as you go along. Yeah, you can unlock moves in Bayonetta and Devil May Cry, but you have so many moves at the beginning, right? You're just unlocking additional stuff you can do. You have a plethora of stuff you can do. You don't really have that in Stellar Blade. And as a result, Kevin, I don't really know what this is. Like, so I know that wasn't a very great explanation, but how do you feel about this combat?
I 100% wholeheartedly agree with everything you said. I also do not like the parry and dodge system. And I was very much, actually, I wasn't even going to bring it up. And then I seen you had it on the notes. I wasn't going to talk about it because it just seems like almost a cheap shot. But I was absolutely like thinking about that Souls comparison when I was playing this as well. And it's faster and more fluid from that, but it's got that same foundation. And as far as the timing for that, like they make it clear when an attack is coming, but to know exactly when it's going to land, it doesn't feel intuitive, and that kind of killed it for me. I've said before, and I've really never ever changed the difficulty on games, and I put this on story mode when I was fighting that last boss because I was getting fucking frustrated and I just didn't feel good.
It's not very fun.
So I think like because I was like I just want to fucking get through this at this point. Also, I found it incredibly annoying how long it takes you to use a health item, and I think this was almost the biggest problem I was having on that last boss fight. I died multiple times when I had 3 health items in reserve, but I just wasn't able to use it in time. It feels purposefully delayed and to a frustrating level. There's nothing good to me about that. If they want, and I understand the logic behind saying, we want you to have to like plan out using your health, but it felt like it was incredible. It was the worst thing about the combat for me, honestly, was the time delay to use a health item.
Again, that seems like a Souls type of philosophy, right? But it doesn't gel with the other, like the way the enemies move or the way the combat goes. So it's at odds with each other, right? The health item, yeah, okay, if it's going to take a long time to use, they better take a long time to attack you too, right? And they don't. Yeah. So that's the shitty part. Those two things are at odds with each other, and that's why I'm really confused about what they're going for. Because like in Bayonetta or Devil May Cry, you just pause the game and use an item. Right? Yeah. So it's not really a big deal. This, they want you to be active with it, which is fine, but at what cost, right? Like what are we doing here?
Yeah, and I mean, even in like, Souls combat, I don't want to get into this now. Someday, maybe. I really like put a good effort into trying to get into Elden Ring a few months ago, and so I do. In that game, it makes sense, the like that delay to use a health item. You need to like use it strategically and intentionally, but this feels, it feels completely different from that. In that game, I recognized the delay and why it was there, but it was never like frustrating and felt needless like it did here. One other thing, the movement when you're locked onto an enemy seemed like awkward and restrictive. But you need to be locked onto these enemies. And there were some cases with that boss, right? There's the like, I don't know if it's lightning, but all of a sudden you can like see stuff like looks like lightning coming down from the sky, and it'll highlight before it hits you.
Yeah.
And I could very much see that coming. I intentionally wanted to dodge around that, and I feel like I made the proper effort to dodge that, but was still often hit because that movement in that situation felt so sluggish and restrictive. And it doesn't feel like that when you're not locked on. But I do not think that boss fight it would be unreasonable to try and do that not having that boss locked on the entire time. So that was a really like weird dynamic, because this game seems to like pride itself on that like fast and fluid movement. So
yeah, but
I
doesn't.
don't know,
It also
like,
doesn't feel. It doesn't feel like you actually are fast and fluid. I never felt that way while playing. I don't like. Okay, I played through Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. You are playing it right now. That game also has dodging and parry timing and stuff. I have no problem doing it in that game.
Yep.
Okay, and look, I'm sure the parry windows and stuff in that game are bigger than Stellar Blade, but what I'm saying is maybe Stellar Blade should have that, because like if you want me to do this very precise timing for that stuff, we need to have very precise enemies and very precise gameplay, and this doesn't have that. So you can't ask me to like, okay, in a 3-frame window, like parry this thing and then have like enemy swarms at the same time. I just feel like that's not very fun.
But when you're not locked on, like when you're just traversing the world, it feels fluid and fast then. And
Yes.
there's no difference between when you are in a battle, you can still move in exactly the same way. It's just that like lock on that seems to ruin everything. You know what I mean? Like you could be fast and fluid playing that. You're just not going to have a fucking clue where you're aiming.
No, you're not. And again, go using Rebirth as an example, because this is the last thing I played, and I think it is a good comp anyway. That game is challenging. I don't think we could say that game is easy, right? It's not like super duper hard, but it definitely gives you a workout. I'm sure you've been to a boss or two where you're like, fuck, right? So
I was surprised at how challenging it was.
Right. And that's the thing I liked about Remake, where it's like Remake was also challenging, but I think it was also a little picky or unfair. I think like Rebirth really refines that to a large degree. And like Stellar Blade, again, you can be, I think what I'm trying to say is, I think they were afraid that the game wouldn't be challenging if they didn't have that kind of timing to go along with it. And I just think that's untrue. I think the game would still be pretty challenging and the combat would still be fun if they loosened it up some more. I think they made it this way because it's like, oh man, that's not very fun if you could just go through and try. Well, I don't think people are going to do that. So hopefully, I don't know if they're taking feedback from this demo or something. I hope they are. Again, talking about Rebirth, they took feedback from that demo and put it in the final game because the demo was too hard. And the final game is not. I didn't play the Rebirth demo, so I don't know. But apparently that was the feedback. That was the same feedback about Bravely Default 2. I think like Japanese companies put out these demos for that kind of final tuning feedback before a game comes out. I really hope they can do that to Stellar Blade. I really do, because if they do, I think I will be more inclined to buy this, because again, right now, like I've been looking forward to this for a long time. I don't know if I want to buy this anymore. I think this demo turned me off. I didn't hate what I played here. I really didn't. But at the same time, I don't know if I want to play a whole game of this kind of combat for $70.
I mean, as far as like incorporating that feedback, I do wonder, like, I don't know if it's as much as like it makes it more difficult, but it almost feels to me like that was like intentionally by design to appeal to that market that likes those kind of games, because that market is very much there. It's just not us. I mean, for me, that's fine. I feel like, this was an interesting demo. I'm glad I played it and I've got respect for what it is, but it further reiterated that this isn't a game for me. For you, it's unfortunate that you like what this game is, but I do kind of feel like, that was an intentional decision to appeal to those Souls-like players that are looking for that.
But are they looking for that from Stellar Blade? Right? Because I feel like most people who get this are just going to think it's fucking Bayonetta or something. That's what I would assume.
I think there's definitely going to be a good chunk of people that aren't expecting that combat from this game. Hopefully those people played the demo so they know what to expect. But I do also think too, like that market is probably bigger than we as a show give it credit for sometimes, that does like that.
Maybe, but I guess I also, and I could be wrong about this, I feel like the people who do like those kind of games also won't be satisfied by this. Because I don't think they're going to get what they get from playing Sekiro Shadows Die Twice or something like that. I don't think they're going to get that from Stellar Blade. Because if someone says to them, oh, this is a Souls-like, and they pick up Stellar Blade, I don't actually again, I could be wrong. I just don't think like the Elden Ring set is going to like or Lies of P or Wolong or whatever that we don't like, right? Are going to transfer over this and just be like, oh yeah, Stellar Blade, it's another one of those.
Yeah, it's definitely not. But I think one thing that people really like about those kind of games is the combat specifically, so that possibly like, gameplay outside of combat and then the combat of that as a hybrid, might be quite appealing. But I hope I'm wrong. I hope, what you're saying, that they take feedback and they, just like increase the timing a little bit and make this a little bit less like nuanced. I hope that happens for your sake and probably a lot of other people. I would guess the amount of people that are interested in this primarily are not looking for Souls-like combat.
Yeah. And it doesn't do like Souls-like damage either. It's not like those little piddly guys can hit you in 3 hits and you're dead. Like you can't, like they can in Dark Souls, right? Like that doesn't happen.
Right. Yep.
So it's also not that kind of difficulty, or it doesn't feel like it is until you get to that stupid ass boss. Right. But yeah, so it's very confused. Also, there just seemed to be, and again, this could be ironed out by final release, but there just seemed to be some things that were very like unpolished. Like, did you get killed by anything? This happened to me 3 times in a row where I got killed by something. She like staggers a bit and ooh, and then it's like, you died. She didn't like fall over dead. There was like no death animation. She just kind of like, ooh, and then it goes to you. Yeah, it's very abrupt. It's like, okay. I mean, if you're going to do that to me, at least give me like a low health warning or something, which this game does not do. I don't necessarily need one. But again, those are the kinds of like awareness things that like a game of that type would allow you to make. And I think they want you to make that here, but it just doesn't translate. Also, is it just me or is it really hard to see stuff on the ground that you can pick up? It's like tough.
You could definitely miss that stuff easily. It glows a little bit, but it's very missable.
Yeah, I think they want you to use like do the touchpad and do the scanner thing, but I don't want to do that for every fucking thing I want to pick.
Yeah.
Like that seems a little much. I wish they would they do glow a little bit. I wish it was more like an MMO where it just have this big glowing like ping like up to the.
It looked like the fucking materia on Final Fantasy.
That
was easy to see.
I ain't missing those. That's for sure. Yeah, man, I think that's about it. I got to say about this. I just hope that they take some feedback into account and tweak this a little bit, because honestly, this isn't far away enough for me to be like, I'm never buying this. I just think it needs a little bit of tweaking. Now, I don't know if it'll get that or if this is just what they intended and this is the game, then okay. All I can hope for is that this feedback is taken into account, because we can't be the only ones. We can't be.
Yeah. Did you struggle with that last boss as much as I did? How many attempts did it take you?
Like 3.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't again. It was not easy by any means, but I wouldn't say I sat there for forever and like.
I think I died 5 times before I decided to put it on story mode, and most of those times I had not gone through my health.
So how easy was story mode? Was it like hell
It was
easy?
significantly easier. I mean, it wasn't. Yeah, it's not like baby's first game easy, but like it was. I think I used like one health out of like an abundance of caution. Yeah, so like by far much easier.
Wow. Okay. Interesting. Well, I knew this wasn't a game for you in the first place, but it thought it was for me, and it still could be maybe, but it definitely isn't going to be like the knockout punch that I thought. But I'll say it one more time. I'm still willing to spend $70 on this if it gets a bit of tweaking. I'll give it more of. I'll spend money on it and give it a full game shot.
Fine time.
Okay, I have something that I want to bring up with you, and it might be, I know we have decided as a show that we didn't care about the Wii U and 3DS eShop or online services going away, and I still feel that way. I mean, I rarely play online shit to begin with, but I knew this was coming up, and I've been thinking about the original Mario Maker a lot lately, and I knew over the weekend I had to sit down and give it like one last goodbye. Mario Maker was very much the most defining Wii U moment I had during that console's lifespan. And I want to pour one out for the Mario Maker levels. I genuinely am sad, like literally just because of all that user made content is going away. And it was kind of crazy to go in and like, sort by like most played ever. And there's these courses with hundreds of thousands of plays, and you can tell some of these, like some of them are like really cheap and stupid where it's just the like, it just like pushes you through and plays a song or whatever. But some of these are so fucking incredibly well designed. I bet you those people that made a lot of those big ones have not even turned this game on in the last 5 years. And they don't give a shit. But I felt like, I think out of anything, the biggest shame is all of this like user made content is just like disappearing. And what really, like what I hate about that, because I always fall on the side, with any of this stuff, like shops going away or online services or whatever, like it seems like the community always finds a way somehow. Never in my life have I got to a point where I'm like, God, this like thing that I really like am craving to play has been lost to time. I haven't run into that yet. I'm sure people have. There's definitely things, but like with emulation and like just the like user community around that stuff, it's like 99% of our bases to date have been covered, but we're never ever getting back those Mario Maker levels. And like those are for that game, like those are what made that game. You can still go in and like make your own levels and play them at home, and that's great. But you're never going to like, 20 years from now, if you're feeling nostalgic for the original Mario Maker, you're not going to be able to like recapture that experience as it was whatsoever. And I mean, I know this is not a new phenomenon, right? I'm sure Fantasy Online or Fantasy Star Online players are like fucking screaming into their speakers at me, telling me to get over it.
Me, PSO day one player. So yeah, but yeah, you can't play that game anymore. Oh, you can play private server that game actually on PC if you want, but like not every game has that, right? I don't think. Yeah. I mean,
and it's not going to be the same.
It's not going to be the same. It'll never be the same. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, you can play private server City of Heroes or something. It's not going to be the same. I can play private server PSO. It's not going to be the same. So look, you can get like a certain kind of enjoyment from it, which is fine. But like at some point, yeah, I've been thinking as you were talking, I was thinking about myself, and obviously I've made 100 Super Mario Maker 2 courses. Eventually those are going to go away. Mm-hmm. I will have feelings about that. I will. I will want to immortalize those somehow. I mean, I've thought about sometimes just getting like a cheaper sort of capture device where I can just play my courses, all 100 of them, and like save them somehow
for posterity.
Yeah. I wish I could do that because they mean something to me. I don't give a shit who ever plays them, and I never did. I was never like a super popular creator on Mario Maker. A couple of like courses got traction,
but they had a
really.
lot of work go in. That was this was not a like slap 100 things together.
No. And like, look, I still have them all saved on my system. I never, once I completed a stage, I didn't like delete it from my, you can save more than 100 courses to your like save file or whatever. So I have them all, right? But I would like to preserve them as played online somehow. About the only thing I have is that Vin, I think once I made my 100th course, we did a long marathon stream where he played all of them. He beat 98 of the courses. He didn't beat 2 of them. And then he played the final course that I made, my 100th course, live for the first time when he won the stream. So there is that, right?
Did he leave any of my speed runs intact, or has he obliterated all of my times?
You know what? I think during that stream, he did beat one of them, and I don't remember which one it was. Obviously, it's one of the short, fast courses, but maybe you'll have to get back on there and do that. But yeah, I still check in on Mario Maker 2. Obviously, I can't make any more courses. I'm out of room, but I see how my courses are doing, see what people have been playing. I still get comments. I still, you know what I mean? And I still like to go see who is playing. People are still making new courses. It's one of those communities that just will not stop. And so I get it. So when the second game goes down, which will again eventually happen, I will have a certain feeling about it. So
yeah, I think what really made me, and I felt some emotions this weekend about it. Mario Maker, and I think a lot of people would disagree with me on this, and it's fine. But I very much feel like Mario Maker and Mario Maker 2 have very like distinct vibes, kind of in the same way that you would like separate out like Splatoon 1, 2, and 3. Like they've like very much, it's very similar gameplay, but they each have very much their own distinct vibe, and I feel strongly about that between Mario Maker 1 and 2. So I know Mario Maker 2 is still there. But it was hard seeing Mario Maker 1 go away. But I'm also I'm gonna pose this as well. On the flip side, I think that in some ways, knowing that stuff is going to go away, it like makes it more special in some ways as well. Like I don't know. I mean, there's something to be said for that. Like, like even that experience I had on the weekend, going and being like, this is the last time I'm going to do this. This is kind of like a living in the moment type thing. And it's gives it like this defined moment in time where you can only experience this one way. And that kind of makes it special in a way, right? Like if there's a lot of, like, if you want to go play Link to the Past right now, you can go back and play it 100%, really the same way that you played it when it was released, maybe not on original hardware, but the game is the same.
Yes. Of course.
And that's great. You can do that. But I do think that because Mario Maker, Phantasy Star Online, some of these games have this community element, like you're never going to recapture that anyways, even if a replacement service goes up. So that's something to appreciate.
I think so as well. Yeah. Because there's stuff that you can't play Overwatch anymore. There's only Overwatch 2, right? I've been an Overwatch player since, beta or whatever. So I feel that. Now, obviously, Overwatch 2 is largely the same thing, but not really, right? There's stuff in Overwatch that'll never come back. There's characters that their entire kits have changed 2 or 3 times, and you can never play that old version again. And because if you weren't playing back then you never experienced that. One of my favorite characters, Symmetra, she's on like 3.2 or whatever. Like she's had totally different overhauls, and not a lot of people were around when the original versions of those characters were. I mean, there was people around. Obviously, Overwatch came out and it was a phenomenon. But you know what I mean? Like seeing it through time. Not a lot of people have been playing like the entire time, like me, like I have or Vin has. So that is special in a way, right? Now that's not the same thing as like an entire game going down, but I do understand what you mean. And look, I've played like Phantasy Star Online and Phantasy Star Universe. Both those games are dead again, unless you want to do like the private server thing. And like, so unless you were there, then you can't experience that. I do think there is something special to that, but that conversation always becomes so fucked up when you come with the preservation people. No, we must preserve every fucking, and it's just like, that's not really possible. You just can't do that sometimes.
I mean, I don't think having like private servers available for these games in the future is a bad thing. It's just not going to be what it was. It's not a replacement. That's its own thing at that point. Even I remember you a few years ago talking about Destiny 2 and how much that game had evolved from when it first came out, and the way you spoke about it almost seems like that was like a different game at launch than what it was years later. Yes. And that even like, I'm sure when you look back on Destiny 2, you will always be able to like very clearly delineate the difference between those phases.
Yeah. You can still play the original Destiny right now, but I just obviously you're not updating it. They're not maintaining it. It is what it is at this point, whereas Destiny 2 continues on, unfortunately. But anyway, it's funny that you frame this in the context of Mario Maker, because that's, again, I've thought that about my own courses. I have 1,300 hours in that game. I don't want to like lose. I know it sounds weird to say I'm going to lose that, even though I'm not. My courses can be played forever. They're just not going to be in that format anymore with comments or whatever.
Does Vin still have that video or like the Twitch stream video of him playing through all of those? Is that?
Oh yeah, he backs up all his shit. He exports his entire streams as VODs on his channel, as well as like I think saves them locally. So like I'm pretty sure he has the entire thing. Yeah. So if worse comes to worse, but I would like
a live on.
Yeah, exactly. But I would like almost like a no commentary, like
purely this is the level.
Yeah, and I do like a perfect run of it or whatever and showcase it in the right way. Not like a speed run necessarily, but like just showing it in the best light possible. Hey, this is what this course was, right? I wish I could do
so fucking cool if you could like export those courses as like a specific file, and then when those services go away, you could still share that file for somebody to play.
That would be really nice. I wish we could do that. If they could allow it to, because it saves all that stuff locally, all that data, unless you delete it. And I have like 10 to 12 unfinished courses that I have sitting there. I didn't complete everything that I started, right? Because some stuff just doesn't work out, or the idea didn't really come to me the way I thought or whatever. And like, if I could still share those with people in a non-local fashion, that would be good. But yeah, I totally, I get what you mean about Mario Maker, and you're right. They do have different vibes. And if a Mario Maker 3 is ever made, that's going to have its own vibe as well, and own community. It'll go from there. But yeah, other than that, I wasn't really, people are mourning a loss of this Wii U and 3DS stuff, and I'm like, goodbye.
It's good okay. Riddance. I'll stop wallowing in my nostalgia-based sorrow now. I really liked the long, goofy-looking Mario from Mario Maker 1. I'm sorry.
Oh my god! I love to make fun of people in. Fuck it, I'll just say it. I love to make fun of people, including our previous Creative Endeavor host, who was like, you can't turn yourself into Pikachu anymore, or you can't wear this amiibo costume. And I'm like, I'm fucking sorry you guys were so bored during that era that you had to latch on to like Mario Maker as like the shit. And don't get me wrong, it was the shit, but like that's it. That's the reason why you missed that stuff. I'm sorry you remember amiibos and costumes more than a video game. Excuse me. Jesus Christ.
Shots fired.
All right. You want to get the fuck out of here? I think we've blabbed enough about the video game. Sorry for the unusual format today, everybody. I know I say that every time there's only two of us, but that's just how it works. We're used to being a three-man show. Steve will be back next big deal. But until then, check the description of this podcast for our socials, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
We'll catch you next time. This has been